So before this man joined us, I was getting Jeff all worked up about Ace Bailey turning down a workout here. So Pat McCarthy, now that I've got Jeff all fired up, we're going to transition off to that and talk some baseball. Friend of the show, radio voice for the Mets, Pat McCarthy joins us. Good to have you back, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me as always.
We love getting to talk to you about stuff. Late night in for you last night. Talk to us about the state of the Mets, because it's been a crazy like up and down. Phillies going up, they're in the lead. Phillies tumbling down. Mets are going up. Mets tumbling down. Now here they come in tied for first.
Yeah, it was weird because at one point, what, 3.5 game lead for the Phillies, and then they kind of went on the free fall, and then a 5.5 game lead for the Mets, and here we are on June 20th, and both teams are tied. I didn't think that that was going to be the case when this series was going to start because of how well the team was playing. They were coming off back-to-back sweeps, 21 games over 500, kind of flying high and clicking on all cylinders, and then ran into a pesky Rays team, ran into some trouble, and then I don't know who decided to let the Atlanta Braves get hot, but all of a sudden the Braves are starting to win some games. And Brian Snitker was really strategic about how he set up his starting pitching, and the Mets faced Schwellenbach, Sale, and Strider, and all three of them pitched like the aces that they are. So, this team's kind of searching right now because starting pitching had been the backbone of this team all season long. And despite the fact that Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea hadn't pitched all year, the guys that had stepped up were really filling the roles well. And all of a sudden, Kodai Senga goes down, and Tyler McGill goes down, and now you're starting Blade Tidwell in game one of a 3-game series against Philadelphia because the depth of this rotation is starting to be tested, and that's really been the storyline right now.
In addition to the struggles that a starting rotation has throughout the season, and it's always going to have injuries. The
Yeah.
question is whether or not there's the backups there. For the Phillies this year, their depth is in their starting rotation. It certainly isn't in their relief pitching.
Nope.
Do the Mets have the depth to overcome the injuries that have happened and the injuries that will likely happen as the season goes on when it comes to starting pitching?
Yeah, I asked David Stearns that exact question basically before game one of the Rays series, actually, because that was right when Kodai had gone down. And now you're talking about losing three starting pitchers when you include Montas and Manaea. And he said, when you build a roster, you build it with redundancy because you want to be able to fill voids. And the Mets have the guys to fill with 6 and 7. When you have to fill with 8 and 9 on the depth chart, that's where you're running into some trouble because they're being forced to use some young guys. So I think that's really the number one issue right now is the fact that of the 6 guys that you could have broken camp with, 4 of them are on the injured list in some capacity. So that's really hard to overcome. And Clay Holmes is still a work in progress, even though he's throwing the ball really well. Griffin Canning's been up and down this season. David Peterson is pitching like an ace. I mean, there's no way to look around that. He has taken another step forward after a really impressive 2024. But now you've got 4 guys on the IL. That's really hard to replace no matter what. So I think if the Mets needed to replace 2, which they did for the first 6 weeks of the season, they did it really well. Now that they have to replace 4, I don't know what team in baseball can overcome that.
And look, Ty McGill, I mean, he was 20th in baseball with 89 strikeouts. So, I
Yeah.
mean, he was really anchoring some of what you're doing. And now he's on a 15-day IL. And you mentioned Frankie Montas, who could return next week. But, I mean, he's got a 12 plus ERA in his 6 rehab starts. So I'm not sure if he's really found it yet. So as you go into this series, and look, we've kind of done this. Jeff talked about it with the bullpen. We lose our mind regularly over great starts that get blown. Here you have come into a series where teams are tied, opportunity to really make a statement in the East. Got Zach Wheeler going against Blade Tidwell, who is 0-1 with a 14.73 ERA. What, as for Phillies fans who haven't seen Tidwell pitch, what type of pitcher is he from that type of matchup?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know. We've only seen him the one time. He made a spot start in St. Louis, and other than that, he's been pitching in AAA. He's a guy that they really like because he's a bulldog. He throws a lot of strikes. He throws really hard. Uh, he got hit in the zone a little bit against the Cardinals when he made a spot start. So they need somebody to step up though, and they need somebody to be a stopper. And we've been saying that on the broadcast for the last 6 days that somebody has to step up and pitch well. And David Peterson did that a couple of days ago in game one against the Braves. They had a 4-1 lead in the eighth inning, and it seemed like Peterson was cruising towards another complete game. So they've had opportunities there. It's just they need somebody to step up. And when you've run into, I mean, they're basically going to face 4 ace caliber pitchers in a row now. And that's hard for anybody. And you're asking a rookie to step up and make his second career start at a place like Citizens Bank Park, which we all know is going to be rocking this entire weekend. So it's a tough situation, but it's always been a next man up mentality, and this is an opportunity for Blade Tidwell, and it's probably a one and done start. He's probably going to head back down to AAA, but we do know with the amount of injuries to this rotation, new guy could be up at any time.
In the meantime, I want to talk about the offense for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about it for as much long as you want, but I will tell you, I didn't understand the Pete Alonso waffling in the offseason. And Mets, now the Mets got him for a sweetheart deal. He's got 17 home runs, 63 RBIs, OPS of 942, and a batting average of 291. What has he meant to this team, not just this year, but for the past half decade?
Yeah. He's, Francisco Lindor is the face of the franchise, right? Just based on the accolades and everything like that. But if Lindor's not there, it's Pete. Like he's a homegrown guy. He's done it the right way in all likelihood, assuming he continues at this pace. Now he hasn't homered in quite some time, but he's going to become the all-time home run leader by the All-Star break, most likely. And he's done it with class, and he's done it the right way the entire time. So,
and fun.
Yeah, he's fun, and he's a good guy. He's goofy. He plays the game the right way, and he posts every single day. He is always out there. So the opportunity just needed to be right. They weren't going to just hand out a contract for no reason. And Pete would be the first one to tell you that the last 2 years he has not had very good years. This is the best version of Pete Alonso that I've ever seen. And he is consistent. He's not striking out. He's not chasing the way that he used to. And it's to the point where when he's up in a big situation, you just expect him to come through. And teams are pitching him differently, but he's turned himself into a pretty bad ball hitter. If you throw him a slider down and away, he's not going to wave at it. He's going to stay back and he's going to drive it to right center. So, Pete didn't get the long-term deal that he wanted. I'm sure the Mets would love to have him for a long time, but Pete in all likelihood is going to opt out after this year. He's going to head back out to free agency, and assuming he continues this pace, he's going to be an all-star again, and he's going to potentially have the best statistic season of his career all around. So
he's going to get paid.
This team. What's that?
He's going to get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
And he should. He deserves it. He's earned the money.
He deserves it. Whether he's going to be a first baseman for the next 3 or 4 years and then a DH, I don't think it matters. I think some team's going to give him 5-6 years, and he's going to go and continue to be Pete Alonso. But if you talk to the hitting coaches around the team, they all loved the way he came into this offseason. He came in as a better hitter, as a more balanced hitter, and because of that, it's paid off. I don't know if any of us could have anticipated him being a near 300 hitter for now first 2.5 months of the season.
I need to ask you about the Juan Soto experience and the fan reaction to it. From the outside looking in, it looks like kind of a bumpy start, a little bit uneven, some errors on the bases in the field. Talk about what you're seeing up close every day, because from the outside, it doesn't look like it's going the way the fans had hoped for.
Yeah, I think from a 30,000 feet view, if you look down on it and you only see it in a split second, that could be a pretty fair reaction, because there have been some low points so far for Juan, but honestly, since the Yankee series, he's been really good. And I think he's starting to be the Juan Soto that we expected. He's had a really good month in June, and he's starting to drive the ball, and you can see his personality starting to come back a little bit. So I think there were growing pains. I think there was an adjustment period. I think Yankee Stadium was really hard. I've never seen an atmosphere like that, truly, where a guy is getting just booed relentlessly, even when he's not on the field, and the chants never stopped. I've never seen that before. So I think that was a big hurdle for him to get over. I think Boston was probably a low point after that because it came right on the heels of it. But I think overall, he's going to be an all-star in all likelihood. His numbers are starting to get a lot better. He's hitting closer to 250. He's, this, I don't have the number in front of me, what, 16 home runs, whatever it is, 14 home runs. And so I think overall, no, he didn't get off to the flying start that everybody hoped he would. But I think at the end of this season, we're going to look at the baseball card and it's going to be pretty Juan Soto-esque. So listen, this is a 15-year marriage. So, it wasn't going to be perfect immediately. And I mean, were there boos? Yeah, but they were never raining down or anything like that. They were there, but they weren't crazy.
So let me get this straight. Yeah, New York fans are as rough as Philadelphia fans.
Listen, I think fans are passionate no matter what.
So we all know that fans in most cities can overreact. And Juan Soto
here.
not hustling it out.
I would
Okay.
never overreact, Jeff, ever.
Not you. No, not you.
Not present company excluded, except for every week on the show.
But we know in general that fans can overreact, and they overreacted to look. We want everybody to hustle it out every play. The most important thing is not only what happens over the long haul, but what happens in the clubhouse. You have two leaders, at least two leaders, in Lindor and Alonso in that clubhouse. How has Juan Soto fit into the clubhouse, and where does it go from here?
As far as I can tell, fine. I think he's, yeah, as weird as it is, you think about the water bottle scene in LA where he's sitting there with a bunch of guys in the corner of the dugout and flipping the water bottle up and down and running away like a little child after he flipped it successfully when nobody else could. So I think little things like that say a lot. I think Starling Marte's been a huge influence on him. Marte's a veteran guy. He's from the Dominican, and I think he can probably obviously speak Soto's language, but also kind of speak to him in a more friendly way and a more brotherly way. So I think that's been really important. Lindor, Nimos, Alonso, those guys are all leaders in their own way. So what happens behind closed doors, I don't know. But as far as I can tell, the clubhouse interaction's been great.
You're somebody who knows the Phillies organization well, as somebody who sees the Mets every day. How do you break down this matchup? What we're going to see this weekend. Obviously, Mets come in scuffling a little bit. Phillies come in playing a little better. Phillies' weaknesses with their bullpen, some defensive errors, some errors on the base pads, but overall, great record.
Yeah.
Mets, some challenges, overall, great record. How do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting matchup, right? I mean, these teams have only met one time. Is at Citi Field. The Mets swept the series when the Mets were red hot. They swept an entire homestand. They had won 7 straight at that point. So, this Mets team needs something to click, and they need somebody to step up. Obviously, Harper not being in the lineup is huge, but Trey Turner's playing out of his mind right now, and Alec Boehm seems like he's kind of gotten back to the first half 2024 Alec Boehm. So, the Phillies obviously have a really deep lineup. It's June, which means Kyle Schwarber could hit 15 home runs at any point. And
Did a laser last night.
yeah, so this isn't a great time for the Mets to be playing the Phillies by any means, just because of where the starting pitching's at right now. And Francisco Lindor's going through the broken toe. He's coming off a hitless series against Atlanta. The Mets have really struggled with runners in scoring position. If they get opportunities against the Phillies in these 3 games, they're going to have to come through because the way Citizens Bank Park plays, no team is ever out of the game. It's one swing away from a team getting right back into it. So if you have opportunities, you have to take advantage of it. So I think that's really important. I think the Mets need Lindor to get right. Tyrone Taylor's played really well in center field, but their catching situation's been struggling right now with Torrens and Alvarez. So those guys got to figure things out. And for the Mets, it comes down to the starting pitching. They have an ERA north of 6 over the last 7 games. They've been the best starting rotation in all of baseball, ERA-wise all season long. It's a tall task for Tidwell tonight, but he's got to set the tone against Wheeler because I just feel like it can't be when it rains, it pours with this team. There has to be a time when they figure out a way to pull out a win, even if it's like they did against Wheeler in that first game, where it's back and forth. It's a pitcher's duel. I don't know if that's going to be the case tonight, but they got to figure out a way to scrap a win out.
Mets Phillies has always been a rivalry just because of the location of the cities. Yeah. But the teams have never been good for this long consistently at the same time. Are we living in the golden age of a rivalry between the Mets and the Phillies?
Yeah, I think so. I think because there was that little bit of one like 07, 08, right? But it was kind of short-lived because obviously that led to the Phillies winning the 5 straight divisions. But, I've kind of used this comparison a lot with the Giants and the Eagles, that for the most part in my lifetime, the Giants and the Eagles haven't really been good at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part in my lifetime, the Mets and Phillies have not really been good at the same time. Right now they are. They're two of the highest spending teams in baseball. They're developing young talent. They're going to be good for a really long time, and they're going to be competing against each other. I think it's great for the game. We need division rivals in this game. I don't think there's enough of it. Guys are really buddy with each other. I think the fact that we saw some tempers really flare in that Padres
I was
Dodgers.
gonna say, if you watch that game last night, they were not buddy
Yeah,
at
so
all.
I think it's
Managers
good for the
charging
game.
at each other.
Yeah, like listen, players are always going to police the game. I think it's the right way to do it. I'm not saying guys need to get hit. I don't believe in that. I'm definitely not headhunting. But I think it's good if there's a little bit of animosity between teams and between fan bases.
If you were general manager of this team, having seen what you've seen, as we approach the deadline, what do you think the Mets are most going to be looking forward?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think depending on the health of Jesse Winker, they probably need a left-handed bat off the bench. Otherwise, position player wise, you're probably in pretty good shape. Um, they need a left-handed reliever. That's the biggest thing because again, we talk about injuries, and when it rains, it pours. You lost AJ Minter and Danny Young for the season within a week of each other. So you have Jose Castillo in from Arizona, who's throwing the ball pretty well. Brooks Raley's on his way back after some rehab assignments, but I do think they need a high-end leverage reliever. I think that's the number one thing.
Do you think they look for a catcher, or do you think they hope that this gets straightened out? Because
I think
catcher is the hardest position to trade for in the middle of the season because you have to
yeah,
deal with the pitching staff.
yeah, I wouldn't touch that. I think that I think they need to get Alvarez right. I don't know what that looks like, but I think they need to get Alvarez right. And I don't know if that means him going to AAA or not. But he's too important to this team and too important to this lineup. And Luis Torrens does a really nice job, but I don't think they need to do that.
Right. Everybody in this area knows that there's also a rivalry now with you and in your family with
Well,
the
he's
Mets and the
upstairs fixing
Phillies.
the towel rack right now.
Making him do your laundry.
How much fun is that?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's so much fun. It's a shame he's not working this weekend because they're all national games, but it makes it a lot of fun.
Is he gonna come in the booth like when you were a kid? You came in the booth with him. So you got to come sit in the back
Maybe
and
one
watch
of the
the
days.
call.
Yeah, maybe one of the days.
you could bring him as your other like plus one.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like people don't know him around the stadium or anything.
No, I'll make sure he has a pass.
He knows where to get you a hot dog.
That's for sure.
We always appreciate you giving us some time and joining us.
Anytime, guys.
We hope that you don't straighten your stuff out this weekend. No offense. If you want to wait till after the weekend,
All good.
We'll be cool with that. But we'll encourage people to listen to you on the radio since your dad's not on the TV call this weekend. And always appreciate you giving us some time to break it all down.
Not a problem, guys. Talk to you soon.